Welcome to the deep dive. Today we are taking on, well, maybe the largest and most diverse group in the entire animal kingdom, the invertebrates.
It's an enormous group.
We're talking about every animal without a backbone.
And when you say largest, that's almost an understatement. Invertebrates make up over 95% of all animal species.
95%.
Yeah, that's over 1.3 million that we've described, and there could be, 10 or even 20 million out there in total.
Yeah.
So our mission today is to give you a kind of roadmap through this huge diversity.
Okay, so where do we start?
We're going to use the accepted phylogenetic map. So we'll start with the simplest groups and then move up through the massive bilaterian clades, the Lophotrochozoa, Echinoderms, and Deuterostomia.
It's a journey that covers, what, over 600 million years of evolution? So to kick things off, let's start with a creature that really proves invertebrates are capable of things that sound like they're straight out of science fiction.
Ah, you must be talking about the blue dragon.
Locus atlanticus, exactly.
Yeah, the beautiful and very deadly sea slug. For anyone who hasn't seen one, you have to look it up. It's this tiny, gorgeous creature, looks like a little blue and silver alien, and it floats upside down on the ocean surface.
And here's where it gets really wild. It floats there, hunting one of the most feared creatures in the sea, the Portuguese man-of-war.
That's right. It eats them. And in the process, it's evolved this incredible ability to hijack its victims' weapons.
Hijack them.
It physically absorbs the man-of-war's stinging cells, the nematocysts, while they're still undischarged, and it stores them in those little finger-like appendages on its own body.
So it takes the stinger, integrates it into its own body, and then if you touch it, the blue dragon can deliver a sting that's even more concentrated and painful than the original.
Precisely. It turns its prey's defense into its own weapon. It's just, a perfect introduction to the kind of evolutionary power we're going to see today.
Okay, let's start at the very base of the animal tree with phylum Porphyra, the sponges.
The simplest animals. So simple, in fact, that the ancient Greeks thought they were plants.
Right, because they're so soft, they don't move.
Exactly, they're immobile. And they represent a lineage that branched off before true tissues even evolved. So the big question is, how does a large, immobile animal with no real tissues even survive?
They're filter feeders. But how does that actually work? I mean, how does a sponge physically move water?
It turns its entire body into an engine. So the whole body plan is designed to draw water in through thousands of tiny pores, channel it into a central cavity, the sponge,
Okay.
and then shoot the used water out through a big opening on top called the osculum.
So what's the horsepower? What's driving that current?
Specialized cells called choanocytes or collar cells. They line that inner cavity, and they each have a long whip-like flagellum that's just constantly beating.
Ah, so all those flagella beating together create the current.
A very powerful current, yeah. And as the water flows past, food particles get trapped in a mucus-coated collar on the cell, and then the cell just engulfs them.
Okay, so the choanocytes catch the food. But the sponge doesn't have a circulatory system, so how does that food get around to the rest of the body?
That's the job of another cell type, the amoebocytes. You can think of them as the sponge's utility workers. They move through this gelatinous middle layer, the mesohyl. They pick up food from the choanocytes, digest it, and then carry the nutrients everywhere else.
And they build the skeleton too, right?
They do. They manufacture either these sharp little spikes called spicules or flexible fibers of spongin.
But the truly amazing thing about them is their flexibility.
Oh, absolutely. They're totipotent.
Right.
Which means an amoebocyte can transform into pretty much any other type of sponge cell. If the sponge gets damaged or needs to change shape because the water current's shifted, these cells let it basically reconfigure itself.
That's a level of plasticity we just don't see in vertebrates.
Not even close. And real quick on reproduction, most are hermaphrodites. They'll release sperm, cross-fertilize, and the result is a swimming larva that floats off to colonize a new spot.
And because they can't run away, they have to rely on chemical warfare.
They're chemical treasure troves. Researchers have found compounds like pribrostatin in sponges that can kill cancer cells and even penicillin-resistant streptococcus.
Incredible. Okay, so from animals without tissues, we take a huge evolutionary leap to the metazoans animals with true tissues. And that brings us to the cnidarians.
Jellies, corals, hydras. This is a very ancient lineage, going back about 680 million years. And their body plan is pretty simple. They're diploblastic, so 2 tissue layers, and they have radial symmetry.
Like a wheel, and they come in two basic forms.
Yes, and it's helpful to visualize them. You've got the polyp, which is cylindrical and sedentary like a sea anemone. It sticks to the bottom with its mouth and tentacles facing up,
And then you have the medusa.
which is the classic jellyfish form. It's flattened, it's mobile, and its mouth faces down as it swims. But in both cases, the gut is a gastrovascular cavity with just a single opening for both mouth and anus.
Now let's talk about their defining feature, the cnidocytes. What exactly are those?
They're specialized explosive cells. Inside each one is a tiny capsule, a cnida, and the most famous type is the nematocyst,
The stinger.
the stinger. It holds a coiled, stinging thread under immense pressure. When something triggers it, that thread shoots out with incredible speed, punctures the prey, and injects venom. It's like a tiny, single-use biological harpoon.
And their nervous system is also shaped by that radial body plan.
Right. Since they can be approached from any direction, there's no need for a head or a brain. Instead, they have a decentralized nerve net that's spread throughout the body. It lets them respond to stimuli from all sides equally.
So no bones, how do they move?
They use a hydrostatic skeleton. The fluid inside that gastrovascular cavity has a fixed volume. So when contractile fibers in the body wall squeeze against that fluid, it allows the animal to change its shape and move.
We have to talk about the anthozoans, the corals and sea anemones. Corals are just, they're ecosystem architects.
They truly are. Many species secrete these massive, hard exoskeletons of calcium carbonate. And over generations, that builds up into the colossal structures we call reefs.
The rainforests of the sea.
Exactly. But they're terrifyingly fragile. They're like canaries in the coal mine for the planet's health.
Yeah, you see the effects of pollution, ocean acidification, and especially warming temperatures causing coral bleaching.
Right, where they expel the symbiotic algae they need to survive. The loss of coral reefs is just a cascading ecological disaster.
Okay, so that covers the radial animals. Now for the third great leap to the bilateria. Animals with bilateral symmetry, 3 tissue layers. We'll start with the Lophotrichozoa.
And this is a huge, incredibly diverse clade. It's mainly defined by molecular data, grouping together animals that look wildly different, from worms to squids. They often have either a feeding structure called a lophophore or a special larval stage called a trochophore.
First up, the flatworms, phylum Platyhelminthes. They're bilateral, but they have a key limitation.
They are dorsiventrally flattened, like a ribbon. And that shape is everything for them. They don't have a body cavity, and that flattened shape maximizes their surface area.
So they can get oxygen just through diffusion.
Exactly. Gas exchange and waste removal happen right across their skin. They physically can't get any thicker, or their inner cells would suffocate.
So physics constrains their body plan? What about their internal systems?
They manage their water balance with networks of tubules called protonephridia, which have these little flame bulbs that flicker and drive fluid through ducts.
And the parasitic flatworms have just mind-bending adaptations, flukes and tapeworms.
Oh yeah, take the trematodes, the flukes, something like the blood fluke cystosoma. It can live inside a human for decades. How? It coats itself with the host's own proteins, basically wearing a camouflage to hide from the immune system.
An invisibility cloak. And tapeworms take it even further. They don't even have a digestive system.
They don't need one. They live in your gut, so they just absorb nutrients that you've already digested right through their body surface. They just anchor themselves with a head-like scolex that has hooks and suckers, and the rest of their body is just sacs of sex organs called proglottids.
Talk about efficiency. Okay, moving on to the rotifers. Microscopic but complex.
They really are. They're multicellular. They have complex organ systems inside a body cavity called a hemicole, and this is a big deal. They have a full alimentary canal, a gut with a separate mouth and anus.
A step up from the cnidarians.
A major step up. They feed with a crown of cilia and grind food up with little jaws called trophi.
But the real mystery here is the bluteloid rotifers.
It's a fantastic puzzle. This group seems to have survived for 50 million years without any sexual reproduction. That should be an evolutionary dead end.
So how do they get genetic diversity?
Well, one hypothesis is horizontal gene transfer. They can survive complete desiccation. When they dry out and then rehydrate, tiny cracks can form in their cell membranes, allowing foreign DNA from, say, bacteria or fungi to get inside and become part of their genome.
That's wild. They're borrowing genes from their environment. Okay, let's tackle the second most diverse phylum, Mollusca. Snails, clams, octopuses.
They look so different, but they all share a basic body plan. You've got the muscular foot for movement, the visceral mass with all the organs, and the mantle, a tissue fold that makes the shell and covers the gills in the mantle cavity.
And most of them feed with that unique rasping tongue, the radula.
Right. And from that basic plan, you get incredible diversity. You've got gastropods, the snails, using that foot to crawl. You've got bivalves, clams, and mussels that are filter feeders that have lost the radula entirely.
And then you have the cephalopods, the squids and octopuses, the geniuses of the invertebrate world.
They really are. Active, intelligent predators. Their foot has evolved into tentacles. They move by jet propulsion, shooting water out of a siphon. And crucially, they have a closed circulatory system.
Which you need for that kind of speed and activity.
Exactly. And on top of that, highly developed eyes and complex brains. They are a peak of invertebrate evolution.
But there's a really dark side to this group, the silent extinction.
It's heartbreaking, yeah. Mollusks account for 40% of all documented animal extinctions, especially freshwater bivalves and land snails. They're so vulnerable to habitat loss and pollution, and we often don't even notice they're gone.
A quiet catastrophe. Okay, our last Lophotrichozoan group, the annelids, or segmented worms.
Segmentation is their key innovation. The body is a series of repeating parts. We generally split them into two lifestyle groups. The Arantia are mobile, marine worms with these paddle-like appendages called parapodia that are covered in bristles, or chaetae.
And the sedentaria are the less mobile ones, like earthworms and leeches.
Right, earthworms are, vital ecosystem engineers. And leeches, the famous parasites, secrete an anticoagulant called hirudin, which we actually still use in medicine today.
Okay, that brings us to the most successful clade on the planet, the ecdysozoans.
Yes, and their defining feature is right in the name, ecdysis. It's the process of molting, of shedding a tough external cuticle in order to grow. This clade has more known species than all other eukaryotes combined.
We start with the nematodes, the roundworms.
They are everywhere, just ubiquitous. They're cylindrical. They have that tough cuticle and alimentary canal, but no circulatory system. Nutrients just slosh around in their body cavity, the hemocoel.
And what's with that weird thrashing movement they have?
That's because their body wall only has longitudinal muscles. They can't squeeze and stretch like an earthworm. They can only bend side to side, which results in that characteristic whipping motion.
Some of the parasitic ones are just terrifyingly sophisticated.
Oh, absolutely. Take Trichinella spiralis, the worm that causes trichinosis. When it gets into your muscle, it doesn't just sit there. It injects molecules that actually change the gene expression of your muscle cell, turning it into a protective, nourishing capsule for the worm.
It reprograms the host cell. Unbelievable. Now, for the undisputed champions, the arthropods. 2 out of every 3 known animal species.
Their success comes down to a 3-part toolkit: a segmented body that's often specialized, a hard exoskeleton made of chitin, and jointed appendages. That exoskeleton was the absolute game changer for moving onto land.
Right. It gives them support and keeps them from drying out.
Exactly. Inside that shell, they have an open circulatory system where blood or hemolymph is just pumped into the body cavity. And for breathing, they've evolved everything from gills to tracheal systems in insects or book lungs in spiders.
Let's run through the big groups: chelicerates, myriapods, pancrustaceans.
Chelicerates are named for their claw-like feeding parts, the chelicerae. That's your spiders, scorpions, mites. Myriapods are the many-legged ones. Millipedes are herbivores with 2 pairs of legs per segment, and centipedes are carnivores with 1 pair per segment and poison claws.
And finally, the massive pancrustaceans group, which includes both crustaceans and insects.
Right. Crustaceans, lobsters, crabs, krill. They're unique for having 2 pairs of antennae. And it includes some surprising members, like the barnacle, which you'd never guess was a crustacean until you see the orva.
And then the insects, hexapoda. The dominant life form on land.
By far. More species than all other groups combined. Their success is tied to a few things, but especially flight. And their wings are just extensions of their cuticle. They didn't have to sacrifice any limbs for them, unlike vertebrates.
And they undergo metamorphosis.
Yes, often complete metamorphosis: egg, larva, pupa, adult. Which is brilliant, because the larva and the adult don't compete for the same food. They're just essential to every ecosystem on the planet.
We finally made it to our last major clade, Deuterostomia.
And this group is defined mainly by DNA evidence and some shared developmental traits. It includes us, the chordetes, but first, the very strange and wonderful phylum Echinodermata.
The sea stars, sea urchins, they just look completely alien.
They do. They're slow-moving marine animals. And while their larvae are bilateral, the adults develop a 5-part, often radial body plan. They have an internal skeleton, an endoskeleton, covered by a thin skin.
What's their defining mechanism?
Their unique water vascular system. It's a network of hydraulic canals that powers these little extensions called tube feet. They use hydraulic pressure and adhesive chemicals, not suction, to move and grip things.
And the sea star's feeding strategy is, well, it's pretty dramatic.
It is. It can use its hundreds of tube feet to slowly pry open a clam's shell. And once there's a tiny gap, it everts its stomach out of its mouth and into the clam to start digesting it externally.
Pushes its stomach outside its body. Wow.
And they have incredible powers of regeneration. This group includes sea stars, brittle stars, sea urchins, and sea cucumbers. And of course, the other major deuterostome phylum is Chordata, which starts with invertebrate groups before we get to us vertebrates.
Right. So what an incredible journey, from simple sponges and jellies all the way through the massive bilaterian clades, the Lophotrochozoans, the Adicozoans with their arthropod dynasties, and finally to the echinoderms.
And if you look back, you see these huge themes. You see the success that comes with an exoskeleton and segmentation in the arthropods. And you see the hidden fragility of groups like the mollusks and corals, whose specializations make them so vulnerable.
So after this whole tour of the other 95% of animal life, what does it all mean for us, the vertebrates?
I think it means we need a pretty radical shift in perspective. If you measure evolutionary success by numbers, by biomass, by sheer ecological impact, then this world is ruled by insects and nematodes. We have to recognize the truth in what the entomologist E.O. Wilson said. Bugs are not going to inherit the earth, they own it now.
So we might as well make peace with the landlord.
Exactly. So the thought to leave you with is this. Think about how much of our survival depends on the unseen work done by these dominant life forms we so rarely consider, from the nematodes in the soil that grows our food to the crustaceans in the ocean. Our existence really does hinge on the health of the very groups we spend the least amount of time thinking about.